Hi everyone, my name is Tyler Kay, and this is my Education Without Walls program evaluation. Introduction. On average, students who live in poverty perform worse in school than those who do not. This phenomenon is known as the achievement gap, and I'll elaborate on further slides. In the year 2015, there were over 43 million people in the United States living in poverty. There are many problems associated with living in poverty, and children and adolescents are oftentimes the biggest sufferers of these problems. One of the main areas where we see these problems manifest is in academia. Background. The achievement gap is the educational outcome of social inequalities that exist for people living in poverty, most of whom are part of a racial minority group. There are many studies that conclude that students who come from a low economic background perform significantly lower in school than students who don't. This is true for all commonly used measures of academic success, which are graduation rates, standardized test scores, and college attendance. The factors that contribute to the achievement gap are both societal and political. 1. Students who come from disadvantaged backgrounds generally have parents who are less educated, are poor, and the students have more obstacles that interfere with academic performance. Students who perform poorly academically oftentimes attend schools that are overcrowded, underfunded, and have an underpaid staff. The result of this is that people with very high credentials aren't eager to work at these kinds of schools. All these factors contribute to the existence of schools whose students consistently perform worse on academic measures. This creates a generational cycle of poverty that is hard for some families to break out of, for many families to break out of. About Education Without Walls. Education Without Walls is the program that I'm involved with at my internship, which is at the National Center for Outdoor and Adventure Education, or NCOAE for short. NCOAE is a nonprofit organization founded in Wilmington, North Carolina by Zach and Celine Adair. From their website, Education Without Walls is a year-round adventure education program for highly motivated and ambitious teenagers who have financial need. We have two age groups, grades 7 through 9 and grades 10 through 12, and each group goes on 5 adventure trips per semester, plus an optional 16-day summer expedition. They go surfing, rock climbing, kayaking, and backpacking. The two main components of what we teach on these outdoor trips are outdoor/technical skills and personal development. We do these through educational groups, or ed groups for short. My job as a student advocate. I meet with the students in between trips once a week to offer support, do some informal counseling, and to help them with homework. Literature review. The achievement gap has been a problem for the entirety of our educational period, beginning with racially segregated schools. Societal and political conditions have led to the existence of a number of schools that are extremely underfunded and have a very high minority population. The No Child Left Behind Act was an intervention that was passed on January 8, 2002 by former President George Bush in an attempt to, and this is quoted, ensure that all children have a fair, equal, and significant opportunity to obtain a high-quality education and reach, at a minimum, proficiency on challenging state academic achievement standards and state academic assessments. It's a bit of a tongue twister. About the No Child Left Behind Act. The No Child Left Behind Act implemented pretty significant changes to the public school system. It mandated that more strict requirements on standardized testing and introduced some changes in an attempt to help meet their stated goal. Because of the No Child Left Behind Act, each student takes a benchmark test at the beginning of the semester. The school compares their benchmark test score to their final standardized test score, which are oftentimes called EOGs, and measures the growth in between the two test scores. Each student must show a minimum growth percentage, which varies by subject, to pass the course or to pass the exam. The state also mandates that teachers are highly qualified on core subjects and are held to a certain minimum testing standard themselves. This holds teachers more accountable to stay updated and educated on the material that they're teaching. The act also promoted more involvement from parents/guardians in their child's education by mandating that their grades are posted online into a database that the parents can then access. In New Hanover County, this database is called PowerSchool, and you may have heard of it. Shortcomings of the No Child Left Behind Act. The No Child Left Behind Act doesn't address the underlying issues that cause the achievement gap, which are social inequality, poverty, and underfunding. And many argue that as long as those issues are still so present, that there aren't many implementations or interventions that can be done that would really help eliminate or lessen the achievement gap. Another shortcoming is that the No Child Left Behind Act implemented stricter standardized testing requirements, which underfunded schools traditionally score worse on than their better funded counterparts. And this further limits their educational opportunities, for example, SAT/ACT for college entry. Race to the Top. Race to the Top was another intervention that attempted to close the achievement gap. It was a grant passed by President Obama in 2009 to encourage innovative educational techniques and reform in the educational system. It allowed for political flexibility for new policies for education reform at the state level, as opposed to making those policies at the federal level. The grant was for $4.35 billion, and each state had to individually apply. States were scored on a rigorous 500-point scale. They were graded on, and this is a quote, the rigor of the reforms proposed and their compatibility with 4 administration priorities: developing common standards and assessments, improving teacher training, evaluation, and retention policies, creating better data systems, and adopting preferred school turnaround strategies. The states that scored the highest were awarded a certain percentage of the grant. And North Carolina actually received $400 million from the Race to the Top grant in 2010. The grant attempted to undo the shortcomings of the No Child Left Behind Act by promoting educational innovation instead of restricting it like the No Child Left Behind Act did. My intervention. My intervention had a goal of academic improvement for our students, measured by GPA, when compared to the previous years when they were not participating in the intervention. A secondary or passive goal of this intervention was for the educational support to result in improved attendance, since we know that missed class time has a negative impact on academic success. I met with each student once per week to help them with homework, or to study with them if they didn't have any homework due. Just a note, I didn't do their homework for them. I was there to answer questions or help them understand the concepts, which they would then apply to their specific problem. I was also a source of motivation for these students. Oftentimes these students get low grades because of a lack of completing or turning in assignments, which leads to them not understanding the material as well. This intervention attempted to address that issue. My research question was, does working with each student for 1 hour per week on schoolwork result in a higher GPA for that student when compared to previous semesters when that student was not participating in this intervention? Methodology. My sample was 10 students who participate in the NCOE's Education Without Walls program. They all attend public schools in New Hanover County, and they are all scholarshiped in because they fall below a certain income level. Data collection/measurement. I compared each student's 2016-2017 GPA to their 2015-2016 GPA for the first 3/4 of the school year. So I did the first semester and then the first 9 weeks of the second semester. I had to do this because this school year is not over yet, and I wanted the two numbers. I wanted it to be an apples to apples comparison, basically. Analysis. I used the Pearson correlation test to measure the results of the data. The results. I found that there was a significant difference showing improvement for the GPA measurements. And you see my data on the next slide. And there was no significant difference in the data set for attendance. And here's my raw data. Discussion. There are many factors that contribute to academic performance, and while this intervention certainly had a net positive effect, it's hard to say if the improvement was strictly as a result of this intervention. I was also limited by time in that the data doesn't represent the entire school year, which could possibly skew the numbers. For example, student rarely turns in homework but does well at the end of grade assessments, or vice versa. There was also no room within our program to directly intervene on the number of absences they had, other than tracking it and encouraging/supporting the student if they had attendance problems. But I did want to record and include the measurement because of the strong correlation between attendance and academic success. These are my references. This is my reference page. And I think that is it.